Good evening, everyone. Welcome to meeting of ordinance. Today is June 29th, and the time it's 5:33. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Espinal,
Present?
Vice Chairwoman Peterson. Present. Councilwoman Harris. Present. Councilman Oscar Vargas is absent. Councilor Justin Royas.
Present.
You have 4 present and 1 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please, item number 1.
Item number 1 is an ordinance and amendment of chapter 27 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence entitled the City of Providence Zoning Ordinance approved November 24th, 2014 as amended to change certain text in Article 12 regarding self-storage facility use category.
Thank you. We have 2 exhibits on this, so I'll entertain a motion to enter into the record exhibit 1A and 1B.
So moved.
Motion is made. And it's second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You guys have it. It is officially entered into the record. Do we have anybody from Mr. Bob Acer from Department of Planning? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Robert Azar. I'm the Deputy Director of the Department of Planning and Development. And I'm here to report on the City Plan Commission's review of this project. They met this week and considered this. And the City Plan Commission found that this is an ordinance that's well within the council's purview under the comprehensive plan. It certainly would be considered to be consistent with the comprehensive plan in that the comprehensive plan allows for a variety of different land uses and for the ability for the zoning ordinance to allow or prohibit certain land uses at the council's discretion. And in this case, the City Plan Commission endorsed this recommendation and advised that you should approve it. However, they did make one suggestion, which is that you should consider whether self-storage should be allowed by special use permit in the M1 zone. In other words, one thing that you might consider is banning it entirely within the C3 zone. And instead of banning it within the M1 zone where residential uses are not permitted, you could allow it by special use permit, which would mean that any property owner that wanted to establish this use would have to go before the zoning board to seek a special use permit. So that's their recommendation.
Thank you so much. City Sergeant, could you please bring me the signing sheets for item number 1? John Garrahy.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. John Garrahy. I had not intended to speak on this matter, but I have other matters here, so I thought I'd give you my contribution to this act from a zoning perspective and my own personal comments. I do not have anybody that I represent on this matter, but do a lot of zoning work in the city of Providence. The concern would be when you eliminate a use entirely from all districts, the concern is that you would make the existing facilities within that use group non-conforming. And when they're non-conforming, you have an inability to do any type of expansion or expansion of those uses without having to go back before the zoning board for a use variance. And Mr. Chairman, as you may know, a use variance is very difficult to obtain. And therefore it would really restrict those existing uses in the M1 zone, particularly where housing is not permitted. So essentially, the concern here is that these new self-storage facilities are taking up property that can be used for new housing. In the M1 zone, that is not an issue because housing is not permitted. So that I get the point with respect to new facilities, but the existing facilities in the M1 zone would be severely restricted by this. And if you would allow it to be permitted by a special use permit, the zoning board would be able to control it if it's not appropriate in the district and the use where it's going, and would allow the existing facilities to be able to appropriately expand if they so desire. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call our colleague, Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairman Espinal and members of the Ordinance Committee. I would first like to start off by thanking my colleagues that have worked tremendously on this ordinance amendment and our council staff, starting with our Director of Policy, Chris Brown, and the rest of our policy team. The amount of research and policy work that went into looking into self-storage facilities and the history and kind of what we're seeing of the trends has been very intensive the past few months. Quoting the words of our Deputy Planning Director, essentially, this is a very simple ordinance. What we're doing is prohibiting the future development of any self-storage facilities across the city, including the expansion of existing facilities. And our reasoning for that is what we're seeing right now in the city of Providence is a very rapid growth when it comes to these types of developments, and not any community benefits is what we're seeing as residents of the city getting in return. So just for numbers and research purposes, I would just like to point out how much these types of developments are taking up. Starting with the square footage, Providence, Rhode Island is 18 square miles. 6 million square feet is being used currently by self-storage facilities. So there's currently 15 right now in the city of Providence, 2 in development, 1 including in my neighborhood, that's 11 acres. Like my counselor Anderwald mentioned at the CPC meeting, that 11-acre facility, it's 1 story, by the way, it's 1 level, that's taking up the 11 acres. That would be equivalent to the biggest solar farm here in the state of Rhode Island. So that's the magnitude of land that these types of developments are taking. And the argument that I would make to the M1, thank you CPC for the recommendation, but the simple argument that I would make towards that is there's a million other types of developments that would be rather best used in the M1 zones. What we're seeing with self-storage facilities, they don't provide any type of economic opportunity growth for those neighborhoods. It's usually 1 or 2 at most low minimum paying jobs. So I mean, we'd rather have any other type of commercial development business in those spaces where people of that neighborhood at the very least are being employed, are able to feed their families with these types of jobs, and these self-storage facilities just aren't doing that. So not only do we just want to ban this development, we want to also take the next 1.5 years to look at the zoning where these developments are, see if we could get some more housing opportunities in these types of developments. This is something that has had a lot of strong community support. The CPC supports it, strong council support. So those are some of the main points on this ordinance. But like I said, this is just 1 step to fighting our other issues when it comes to housing. Because that's a big priority of this council is playing a big part in figuring out what can the city do, specifically the city council, to contribute their aspects, their contributions to build more housing, to make more housing affordable, help out the folks that are struggling right now. So this is the first step. Some folks will call it bold. I see it as a common sense policy at this time. For whatever reason, I really don't see it in the future, but you never know. If this is something that a next council needs to take on, reversing our course, that's always an option. But today in day and age, June 29th of 2023, these developments are not what the city needs, in my honest opinion. Not only do we have the 17 developments here, there's 50 self-storage facilities within a 10-mile radius of Providence, Rhode Island. So I would strongly urge my colleagues to support as written, banning self-storage facilities as a whole, City of Providence. Thank you for your time. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, comments, concerns.
Thank you, colleague. Any question from our committee members? Councilor Reyes?
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question around the M1 kind of like stipulation. Is it we wouldn't be able, I'm assuming because of sort of the industrial pollutants, that might arise from that area, but is it, in my view, I guess my question is, can we build housing in an M1 designated area?
So from my understanding, someone can check me if I'm wrong, but currently as it stands, we cannot build housing in an M1. But that's something that, in my opinion, that we need to look at during the comp plan. I'm not sure if that's something that is just never going to be allowed. I don't know, Bob, do you have any?
Well, that'll be a question for Mr. Azar.
Yeah. And if I just made one more question is, if we can't currently, is that because of sort of pollutants or the land is contaminated or anything related to that? What would be the reason why, as of now, we couldn't build housing in an M1?
Thank you, Councilman. The reason why we don't allow housing in the M1 zone, or for that matter, the M2 or the waterfront industrial zones, is because often the uses that you might find in these zones, industrial uses, are of a nature where they're incompatible with residential living. They may produce noise, they may have vehicles coming at all hours of the day. There may be some discernible vibrations in the vicinity of these facilities. So, zoning is a tool where we try to separate incompatible uses and allow for mixing of uses that are compatible. Typically, the heavier industrial uses are not some things you'd want to have next to residential. What we did several years ago, however, is we took the M1 zone and we divided it into two zones. One we call M1, still industrial, no residential allowed. Then we have another zone that we call MMU, which allows for industrial and commercial and residential. And we've rezoned portions of the Valley neighborhood to MMU, where you might see a mix of uses, say in the vicinity of the steel yard and the Monahasset Mill. You've got residences and some industrial uses happening there. So there can be situations where there's compatibility of these uses, and other places where maybe there's not. As Councilman Sanchez suggested, through the comprehensive plan, we may decide that there should be more areas of MMU. I'm not sure I would, I'd have to think about it as to whether we want to allow M1 to allow for residential. I think a better approach would be to take certain areas and rezone them MMU, but that's certainly a conversation we can have.
Thank you, Mr. Azar. Any further questions to your colleague? All right, thank you so much,
Thank you,
Councilman
Chairman.
Sanchez. Thank you. Next, we have Christine Miller. Christian Miller, my apologies.
It's okay. It happens all the time.
Small letters.
Yeah, it's all right. So my name is Christian Miller, otherwise known as CJ. I born and raised in this city. Very familiar with it. Also very familiar with the fact that we have a lot of storage facilities. I don't know if, I mean, we have a habit of putting a lot on the same street anyway. Dunkin's, Cumberland Farms, call it what you be. But I'm here really to talk about how we also have teenagers living in tents in this city. 19, 20 years old, no supportive network of family or friends, no one to rely on. And I know this because I work in the industry of housing homeless youth services. I work with a lot of young people who find themselves on these streets without a place to call home that is safe, it's stable, and that protects them from the elements. And I think that I'm speaking to people up here who came into this office because you want to make a difference. This is an opportunity, though it seems like a small step, toward making a difference by making way and available land that could otherwise be used to develop, whether it's residential spaces, youth shelters. I mean, let's talk about the lack of youth shelters in the city. There are none. And the youth shelters that exist, I think there's only one youth shelter called House of Kodak. It's full to the brim. I can't even believe that I'm here having to say this right now, because this should be, like you said, sir, common sense when we're talking about housing. And I was looking at some of the comments of other folks who are in opposition to additional storage units. And that seems to be a similar and common shared sentiment that we need to make way for housing. I think that really anything else is unacceptable when we have teenagers living in tents. So that's why I came here. I came here from my full-time job where I work to try to help young people in crisis to talk on this issue. And I think that we can do better, and this is a step toward that. So thank you.
Thank you for your time and your testimony. Thank you. Next, we have Michael Telecast.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Michael Tillinghast.
Mhm.
I live at 144 Sumter Street, Providence, Rhode Island.
Thank you.
The Constitution gives this council the authority to pass this ordinance. The Constitution says that it has politicians take an oath to protect and defend Rhode Islanders. The Constitution says that we have the liberty to choose to use this land for affordable housing. People need affordable housing. We have developers building luxury housing, but we need affordable housing that people can afford. People are being evicted and their stuff is being moved into storage facilities and then auctioned off. We need to protect those people by developing affordable housing. We know where the future is going to be. In 100 years, this zoning ordinance that prohibits building affordable housing in this, it's going to be gone. And these affordable housing, there's going to be towers all over the place. That's where the future is. So I'm urging you to pass this ordinance and let this land be used for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Greg Garrett, please.
Members of the council, my name is Greg Garrett. I live on 6th Street. I sat through much of the comprehensive plan work 10 years ago. I made sure we got community gardens into the city, all over the park. So I sat through a lot of hearings. I would normally be apprehensive about changing the zoning code this close to when we're doing a new comprehensive plan. But this is a very small, almost minor change. Self-storage units, as we see them as an industry, are actually a failure of the American system. They are basically designed so that people will buy too much stuff and not be able to fit it in their house and then have to look for a place to put it, rather than realizing that we have way too much stuff, we have way too much trash in America, and that we actually need to cut back on consumerism. I have a long history in opposing consumerism. You know, we do with the Buy Nothing Day winter coat exchange that's been going on in Providence for 26 years, giving away winter coats. We need more things that are community friendly than we need self-storage units. I walk by a self-storage unit frequently when I go to the doctor. And as far as I can tell, not a single human being works in that building on a regular basis. Maybe they have some staff, but they all say, you know, call somebody. You know, there's nobody here. Call if you need something. So, you know, people have keys and most of the people will never need to call. But the fact is that we have what they call economic development that essentially contributes to an overconsumption of resources, you know, and in climate change, we need to reduce our resources, and doesn't produce any jobs other than in construction. We could turn all of this stuff into something much more useful. You know, I mean, have you met anybody that is demanding that we have more self-storage? I mean, I have never seen anybody, I've never been to a rally that somebody said, we need more self-storage units. You know, I mean, there's plenty of self-storage units. Not having more of them in the city would not harm us in any way, shape, or form. And then all of that land that is now going to self-storage units, or would be in the future, as that industry thinks it's going to continue to expand despite the crashes in the economy that are coming because of overconsumption, we could build housing. I mean, clearly, I don't think there's anybody in this room who would disagree and say we don't need more housing. We need lots more housing. And for us to waste land on self-storage when nobody's coming here and saying, gee, we need more self-storage. This is why we need it. I mean, we're going to a comprehensive plan, and I hope the things around the MMU issues come up more. But right now, we need to say no to self-storage. We could, when we do the comprehensive plan and then go to re-up the zoning code, we can change it if we feel like we've made a mistake. But right now, anything that takes away from the opportunity to build housing and puts up something that creates no jobs and has other bad implications for our city should be done away with. So I suggest you pass this and ban self-storage units.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Linda Perry.
Hello.
Good evening.
Thank you, Chair and council people and everyone that was involved in bringing this to the table.
Your name and address, please. For the record.
Excuse me?
Your name and address for the
My
record.
name is Linda Perry. My address is 188 Alabama Avenue in Washington Park and Ward 10. I've lived in Washington Park for 45 years, and it is a residential neighborhood sandwiched by on Allen's Avenue and Eddy Street by light industrial. Now that has transformed remarkably. It was filled with plating companies and dirty manufacturing. Now it's changed. Now it's medical facilities that people go to, and it's pretty much owned by one person. Unfortunately, there's like 30 parking lots there. We have created a heat island, but anything can change. What I wanted to bring to your attention was M1 and MMU, mixed use. anybody can ask for a zoning change, and we have witnessed that. And in terms of pollution, anything can be cleaned up. Currently, there is a building on Eddy Street and Ernest that is being remediated by DEM. I think some people are aware of that. And that's going to be housing, not permanent housing, but emergency shelter slated to be. We don't know what really is going to happen. The self-storage facility that's on Aldrich Street, that could have been, I mean, past, present, and future, that is on the urban trail. That wiped out a whole highway canopy because of a communication error. That could have transformed that whole street, which enters into the mouth of the Roger Williams Visitor Center, Roger Williams Park Visitor Center. In 5 years, and I did mention this at the hearing like 3 years ago, in 5 years, that's going to be hopefully a different place. It's on the urban trail. It is in the mount going into the Roger Williams Park Visitor Center. But now we have a 6-story self-storage facility there that right across the highway is residential, as some people are aware of. Houses we just planted trees there. And right off Aldrich Street, a half a block down, there's a whole street that's parallel to Broad Street. We planted about 35 trees there last summer. There is neighborhoods that abound the M1 zone. And I say, give the neighborhoods priority and not the industrial. Although there is, we look at Imperial Knife, right down in the jewelry district, condos. Gotham Greens, sitting on contaminated land, was cleaned up, and it is the jewel in Onlyville. So anything can be changed. Don't be stuck on what it is. Look to the future and look for housing, for workforce housing, real housing. You know, what has happened has happened. We can't change that, but we can change the future in our development and growth for the people that live here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Stephen Alquist and Representative Sanchez, I believe you were looking for this. So I will call your name.
Hello, my name is Steve Alquist. I live at 26 Ogden Street in Providence. I have a little bit of a different perspective because not only do self-storage facilities return little to nothing to the community they operate in terms of jobs, money, or community, they're also a form of predatory capitalism. A drive through the east side reveals few to no such businesses like payday loan companies. Self-storage facilities operate in poor communities to exploit economic tragedy. These companies are making a bet that the economy will get worse and that evictions will continue to rise and that homelessness will increase. This is the business model, and it can be disrupted by building more housing, but they aren't building housing, they're building self-storage units. As a reporter, I cover homelessness, and I have interviewed many people who have fallen into homelessness. As part of that fall, desperate people who lose their housing gather their stuff together and store their belongings. They work to pay these self-storage companies rent to keep their stuff while they live in tents. But if their financial situation doesn't get better, they stop making payments, they lose all their stuff anyway, in which case it is thrown away, sold, or just disappears, right? They don't get their stuff back. They've wasted all that money, all that effort. And, you know, there may be a place for self-storage units as an actual useful business. I think there are examples out there, but the self-storage units proliferating in Providence are exploitative and predatory. We need to find a better solution to store the property of people becoming homeless, which I don't think has anything to do with a self-storage unit, really. These businesses are like vampires, and we need to do something better. That's my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Enrique Sanchez. Madam Clerk, would you please give this to Rep. Sanchez so he can put his name on there, please?
Good afternoon, members of this council. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, folks, for having me here today. I am here in support of this code of ordinances by the city of Providence that would ban self-storage facilities throughout the city of Providence. So right now we're at a tipping point in our housing crisis where we are we're late to the game. We are 50th. A report came out by the Rhode Island Foundation that we were 50th and developing housing throughout the state of Rhode Island. We were dead last throughout the country. And so, we are doing our part at the State House to address the housing crisis, implement funding to relieve homeowners, especially in the most vulnerable communities. There are a lot of empty commercial properties throughout the city of Providence, and also self-storage units as well. And landlords and developers are using mechanisms like intimidating tenants throughout the city, intimidating them and threatening to evict them. So in order to understand how the battle between the tenants and landlords is happening, landlords are realizing that it's easier for them to pay for self-storage for their tenants, move them to Airbnbs or to hotel rooms, and utilize this opportunity to also keep on building self-storage units. So using this mechanism by landlords, I've noticed this with a lot of constituents. I've noticed this with a lot of residents who have reached out to ask for supports. And so we don't need more self-storage units. We don't need big developers. We don't need big companies or corporations utilizing these spaces when we can, in fact, use this to rezone the city and also implement more low-income and affordable housing throughout our city. I think these are the necessary steps that we need to take moving forward, and I hope this ordinance passes the city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Don't forget to sign.
Yep.
Then it's right behind you.
Chair, could I make a comment?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. So colleagues, what I'm hearing is, I'm hearing consumerism. I'm hearing that the self-storage industry is exploitative in this housing crisis and during skyrocketing homelessness. The other thing I want to mention, and this point is also interconnected, is that as rents rise in the city rapidly, renters have to move into smaller apartments and downsize. And typically, smaller apartments, you pay less rent for a smaller apartment with limited bedrooms. Therefore, to that point, a lot of folks have to downsize because of the rising rents, and then have to seek self-storage as a way to store their belongings from downsizing. So I just wanted to make that point as well, because that's exactly what I'm experiencing right now. Is my wife and I, we moved into a different apartment. The apartment's still rather small, and we have to take into consideration we've as far as budgeting, we've had to pay for self-storage, and essentially we've incorporated that into our monthly rent, which I know many renters across the city have to do as well. So, and in fact, self-storage is so exploitative that they've have increased my monthly payments multiple times this year, and I just have not had the capacity to find a cheaper alternative. And so they're very exploitative. So I just want to make that comment, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Royas. And last, we have Rachel Hollock.
Hi, thanks
Good
for
evening.
letting me come talk. My name's Rachel. I live over off North Main on Duncan Avenue, which is really close to Branch Avenue, right next to where we're proposing to put some new storage space. I had been reading multiple articles about this, and some of the most frustrating things in the news articles were things like nobody lives over there, or nobody shows up to these events to talk about how much they don't want the storage. So I felt like I really finally needed to come here and say, I live over there, and I want to be a member of the public who's saying something about this. But we have a lot of storage spaces, and that section of North Main, I think has so much potential to be more than just what it is today. And I feel like adding another storage space there is just truly not going to help us get to that vision we have for North Main. There's a storage space that is right there that I can see from my living room window. It's incredibly bright. They have the lights on all the time. And it seems just so wasteful to have a building full of things with energy running to it all day already. And then to add another one, I just feel like is doubling down on this wasteful thing. So if we need more voices from the public saying, please don't build more storage spaces, I'm that person. Please don't build another one. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rachel. All right, being that there is no one else to speak on this item, this closes the public hearing on this item. And also being that it has the support of the CPC, it has the support of the vast majority of the council. It has the support of the community, the people that have spoken in favor. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion is made
Second.
and it's second by Councilor Royas. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Madam Clerk, item number 2, please.
Item number 2 is a petition from Dylan Conley, Conley Law Associates, 123 Dyer Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903, on behalf of Vicioso Homes LLC, requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessor's Plat 99, lots 217 and 218, 693 and 697 Douglas Avenue from R2 to R4.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have an exhibit to enter into the record. I'll entertain a motion to enter it into the record, exhibit 2A.
So moved.
Motion is made
Second.
and second. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion 2A is entered into the record. I'd like to call on those that are presented here, but first, Mr. Bob Azar from the Department of Planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Good evening.
This is one of actually 4 items tonight where there's a petition to change the zoning to the R4 zone. I've spoken about this before. This is a zone that we refashioned not too long ago with your help and support to create an opportunity for multifamily housing where it is appropriate. And we believe that this is a good example of exactly where it is appropriate. This is along Douglas Avenue, which, as you know, is a major commercial corridor. In this case, these 2 lots are currently zoned R2, but they are in proximity to commercial corridor zoning, the C2 zone. And in this case, the comprehensive plan would support a change to R2. The City Plan Commission reviewed this and found that the zoning change would be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So that would enable you to make this change. My understanding is that the change would enable the developer to build two buildings, both with 8 units, which is sort of that sort of medium-sized apartment building that that we think would be a good fit for this corridor and that we believe we need a lot of in the city to meet our housing challenges. So with that, I will report that the City Plan Commission voted unanimously to recommend that you rezone these lots to R4.
Thank you, Mr. Azar. Any question from my colleagues for Mr. Azar? Hearing none, the next person will be Attorney Dylan Conley.
Chairman, honorable members of the board. Bob's always a tough act to follow. I usually have a list of things I want to say and Bob covers them all.
Absolutely.
So I'll be brief. It's R2 to R4 to build that missing middle. 2 8-unit buildings facing Douglas Ave. It's right on a bus stop. We're pretty excited about the project. It's surrounded by commercial right across the street and a little further down the road on the same side. I'm happy to answer questions. I have other documents, but the presentation before you is pretty thorough. I thought the CPC hearing went very well. There were no objections or concerns at that point either.
Any question from my colleagues for Mr. Conley? Hearing none, thank you so, Councilor Harris, please.
Yeah, what is these houses affordable?
I'm sorry?
What type of houses are they? Are they affordable or they are
Market rate.
workforce or what?
Market rate apartment units. That's where we're at right now. We will be considering affordable. It depends a little bit on some funding opportunities. Rhode Island Housing passes its funding in tranches, so we hope to be competitive in that, but we're not confident we can guarantee that, so we're not presenting it as such.
Yeah. Can I ask you another question? What is market rate rents?
Market rate in that area, I couldn't speak to off the top of my head. But what we would see is you could probably pull it up on sort of a Zillow and see what the 2-bedroom units are going for. I think largely we're hoping to do 2-bedroom units in those locations. Maybe there's some smaller units, but market rate is expensive for Providence right now. But it's also expensive to build. So that is one of the reasons why we're going to try to be competitive in those affordable housing grants and funding opportunities. But I can't guarantee it. So I don't want to sit here and say we're going to do X when I'm not sure I can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Luis Vicioso. Is that what? All right, but thank you so much. What about Nelson Lotus? Soares. Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nelson Soares. I live on 10 Columbus Street. It's a lot.
Sir.
It's a lot adjacent to the 2 lots in question. On that space, they already built 1 house, 1 2-family house. It's a lot that I have like three lots. And one of the questions over there is parking space. Those houses have no parking. So they already built 1 house on that lot. They want to build 2 more multiple family houses on that lot. And on that street is only single family houses. One of the questions is parking. Does the only street on that zone that the kids can run bikes on the street? Because that's the only street that like single family houses. By putting 2 multiple family houses on that corner, it's like right now I can show you a picture. The one house is already built there. They park 4 cars on the streets every night because there's no parking for the lots, for the housing. So I don't think it's convenient, maybe for the city, but not for the neighbors, to put a 2 multi-family house on that corner. Because one is parking, is very restricted, and those lots are very narrow, and they all have a drive-in parking lot. You know, everybody that live in the rent building now, all the drive-in parking, nobody parking, because if you gotta get out, you gotta go call your neighbor to move his car for you to get your car. So everybody parks on the streets. And what another thing that's bringing, like by parking on the streets, is making their neighbor like unsafe because the people trying to break into cars. Because normally all the cars in the driveway, so the street is clean. So people don't take a chance to break in because you can see them on the cameras walking like 50, 100 feet away from the house. Now by having car parks on the street, people can sneak between cars and jump in the backyard because you can see them. So by taking into consideration building multiple family house on that corner, I would appreciate if you take in consideration that neighborhood. I'm the youngest over there. I've been there for 10 years. And most of the people there are elderly people. They've been living in the neighborhood for years. So that corner is that's the only street on that corner by off Douglas that have multifamily houses, no much rent to people over there. And the other thing I would appreciate, we cannot allow these developers to change their zoning. All the zoning is died by study because one developer want to change a zone because for his only profit. It's not fair for the people that have been living in the neighborhood for years. We cannot allow the developers to decide what the zone is going to be for their only gain. All the zone is done by studying. So if you develop a zone as an R2 zone is a reason. Now, because one developer want to build for his only gain, we're going to change the whole neighborhood to zone 4. I don't think it's fair for the people that when we bought a house in the zone R2, and the house is valued because the value that R2 has is not the same value that R4 zones has. No, by changing that, everybody that has a house there will be depreciated because R2 zones has more value than R4 zones. I would appreciate if you guys take that into consideration by doing this.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you.
Is it Greg Dugarian?
Evening. I apologize for my right leg, not a happy leg at the moment. Grant
Good
O'Gara,
evening.
20 Exeter Street. I am going to speak against every single zone change to R4 because the previous council at the very end of the last council, back in, I don't know, October, November, December, the planning department presented a whole bunch of what was termed technical amendments to the zoning ordinance, and the council passed them all. But what was in there was a change to R4. We all know that we have, square foot per dwelling unit requirements in R1, R2, R3, R4. They're all based on essentially a stereotypical 50 by 100, 5,000 square foot lot. R1, that's 1 unit. R2, 2,500 per dwelling unit. R3, 16 and change per dwelling unit. R4, 12 and change per dwelling unit. Inserted in this list of technical amendments was a reduction in the square footage per dwelling unit for R4. Now, did they go down from 1,200 to 11 or 10 or even 9? No, they eliminated it entirely. They essentially made an R5 and just obliterated R4. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. We don't need to overcrowd the already most dense zoning areas of our city. What needs to happen, and Bob referred to the fact we're doing a comp plan now. What needs to happen is we all need to take a map of the city of Providence, look at all the R4 zones and see if any of them make sense to increase the density that's already there. What I was told was, oh, well, we're only increasing the density of big housing projects that are already more dense, that were there, grandfathered in already there before zoning. Well, this is obviously not the case. And there are other examples coming up tonight that are not the case. So my suggestion, my recommendation is to just table anything that wants to become an R4 until we do a more informed study of the city and make informed decision as to what makes sense and what doesn't. And so I am very much opposed to this. If you look on the side streets that's right by this property, they're all, as the gentleman preceding me stated, 1 and 2 family homes. So this is not fair. This is not just. This is not right. This is not equitable. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. This now concludes the public hearing on this item, Madam Clerk. Okay, thank you so much. Welcome back. Sorry for the delay. So I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion is made,
Second.
second by Councilor Royas. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion is approved. So Madam Clerk, item number 3, please.
Item number 3 is a petition from Vincent Mann, Kiltiff Investments and Consulting LLC, One Custom Suite 201, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903, requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessors Plat 53, Lot 101, 515 Prairie Avenue, Assessors Plat 53, Lot 99, 134 Gallup Street, and Assessors Plat 53, Lot 98, 138 Gallup Street, from a pre-existing non-conforming use, 2 vacant lots and a commercial detail shop from R3 to R4.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. City Sergeant, do we have anybody testifying on this? That'll be number 3. Anybody here? All right, so we just have one person. So, Mr. Azar, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So
Thank you.
this is another zoning change request from, in this case, R3 to R4. And this is a proposal that involves a land development project. This is the petitioner has filed an application to build a 15-unit apartment building on these 3 lots. This would have 15 parking spaces to meet the minimum parking requirement for a lot of this size. In reviewing this, the City Plan Commission felt that this was an appropriate use for this area, that the comprehensive plan designates this as an area that can support R4 zoning. I'm sorry. The City Plan Commission did not review this. The planning department reviewed this. I'm getting ahead of myself. What you need to know is that this was originally scheduled to be reviewed by the City Plan Commission this past Tuesday. On this particular item, we didn't have a quorum, so the commission couldn't review it. This hearing can move forward. You can take testimony, but the state law doesn't allow you to vote until you've received the recommendation from the Plan Commission. We expect that to happen at next month's meeting. I've spoken to the applicant's attorney about this. He understands that once this hearing happens and once it's closed, if you were to change it in any way, or if the City Plan Commission made a recommendation for you to change it in any way, there would have to be another public hearing that would have to be re-advertised. I think Mr. Garrahy, the attorney, will agree that his client would proceed at his own risk, but he wanted to move forward with the hearing tonight. For the record, I will say that planning staff did recommend in favor of this without any specific conditions. So, but I don't want to prejudge the City Plan Commission's action on this. So I think that's all I have for this.
Thank you, Mr. Azar. Any questions for Mr. Azar? Hearing none, thank you. John Garrahy, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, John Garrahy on behalf of the petitioner with respect to this application. As Bob had indicated, we had hoped that the City Plan Commission was going to vote on Tuesday with respect to this application. Unfortunately, they had a lack of a quorum with respect to this matter. We believe, let me just talk about the application. There's an application before the City Plan Commission for a 15-unit apartment at this location if the zone is changed to R4. We believe that the change to the R4, the changes which the council had made with respect to the R4 is going to revitalize a lot of these areas, including this one on Prairie Street. This neighborhood has already started to be revitalized. This is going to incentivize that. It's going to allow for this 15-unit apartment on a site that is underutilized and non-conforming. It's going to have 15 units with 15 parking spaces. Housing. This is more housing, and it's totally appropriate for this area. The R4 change would allow that to happen for 15 units in this area. There is new housing in this area. The area is changing totally as a result of the housing. This is going to assist in that endeavor. So we believe it's totally appropriate, and I'll just the 9 units, and I'll talk about the market rent. Councilwoman, with respect to it, the 1-unit apartment, the market rent is currently $1,250. The 2-bedroom is $1,450 for the area. And certainly the market will determine that. So if the market can get those rents, it will. If it can't, they'll be lower. Mr. Chairman, with respect to the issue of the, you cannot take a vote, as Bob indicated, with respect to this matter, but we believe it's important. It was advertised, and to go forward with the public hearing so that anybody that wants to, and we would be able to meet that requirement. You cannot vote until you hear the recommendation from the City Plan Commission. We believe the planning staff had recommended approval. As I indicated, there is a plan before them for this project. If the zone change is made, we believe it's a good project that'll revitalize the area, and request your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Any question, Councilor Harris? Put your mic up, Councilor Harris.
Fine. Sorry about that. In the petition, I heard both you and Mr. Azar say it's 15 units, and according to the petition, it says 16. Is it 16 units with 16 parking, or 15?
It's 15 units with 15 parking spaces.
Well, we have a mistake in the petition here, right?
The petition, if you want to change that by amendment, certainly I'd support that. The petition is really for the zone change, not the specific use of it. So if you want to do an amendment to that with 16 units as they evolve, it has been 15 units with 15 parking spaces.
Okay, I just wanted to know.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I appreciate that.
But that's just for the purpose of the zoning petition.
But I still don't quite understand, why would we put more units in, even if it's a zone and you're gonna only create 15? I just don't understand. It's my ignorance that I don't understand that part. You said that this is only for.
Let me just consult with my client for a minute, but
Okay.
But clearly things evolve as they become put on paper. So let me ask my client.
Okay, please.
Yes. No.
Yes, John.
Thank you. So originally, they could not fit 16 units based upon the plan that they had before them. My client informs me that there's 16 parking spaces, 15 units. So as the plan evolved, as they put it on paper, the 16th unit could not fit within the program.
Thank you. That explains it. Yeah, I was just trying to understand. I thought it was different language because of zoning, but you've been able to help me understand. Thank you.
Chair.
Councilor Reyes.
Thank you. I guess I was just put my bias on the table for a second. I think you mentioned in your earlier remarks that the neighborhood's changing, revitalization. And to me, that's like code for gentrification. So that being said, I just want to ask, what what would be the market rate? And are these like one bedroom units?
So there are 9 one-bedroom units with a market rate of $12.50. There are 6 two-bedroom units at $14.50.
Okay, 1450, okay.
So if I can address
Sure,
your
yes,
issue,
yes, please.
your issue. So I've lived in Providence all my life. I'm familiar with the neighborhood, and I live in Providence. And as I drove by this to look at this site, I saw the new units that were over there opposite this project on Gallup Street, and an apartment building. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of it. But it seemed to me that that housing changed the neighborhood, changed the look of the neighborhood for the better, And so we're now replacing a detail shop with some vacant lots. And so I didn't mean to use any code words, but certainly the density and the housing in this area improve the area along with the housing that's already there. And I'm not using any code words. I'm just saying it's going to be better because there's housing for people in the neighborhood, and it's going to improve what's existing already.
I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so this now concludes the public portion of item number 3. And so now the public hearing is closed for item number 3. Madam Clerk, item number 4, please.
Item number 4 is petition from Gabriela A. Mendez, Alpha Omega Properties LLC, 751 Academy Avenue, Providence, Rhode Island, 02908, requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessor's Plat 42, Lot 9, 4 Avon Street from R3 to R4.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have it? Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll entertain a motion to enter into the records Exhibit 4A.
So moved.
Motion is made, and do I have a second?
Second, sorry about that, Chair.
Motion is made second. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Exhibit is entered into the records. Mr. Azar from City Planning, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a petition also to change the zoning of a parcel of land from R3 to R4. In this case, there's already an existing building on the property, and it has multiple units in it, more than 3 units, and I believe it's occupied currently by a 5-family dwelling. This is a rather large parcel of land in the R3 zone. And in this case, the R4 zoning is intended to legalize the existing use of the property. As you know, we have many properties throughout the city that have what we call nonconformities, and this is an example. And part of the reason we structured the R4 zone the way we did was so that it could be applied to non-conforming situations such as this. So the City Plan Commission reviewed this and made findings that this was consistent with the comprehensive plan, and has recommended that the council rezone the lot to R4, subject to the following condition: that the applicant shall bring the building into conformance with the building and fire code when establishing the legal uses of the existing in the existing building.
Thank you, Mr. Any question for Mr. Azar? Hearing none. Councilor Vargas, please.
Mr. Hazen, thank you very much. So this one is a one-family house, so
It's actually a 5-family house. It looks like it. Yeah, there's it's deceptive from the street. So again,
five-family house, 5 units with 1 meter, electric meter?
I can't speak to how it's metered, but I know that the city has inspected and determined that there are 5 units there. So as I mentioned, one of the conditions of approval is that the City Plan Commission wanted to make sure that the building conforms with all of the applicable fire and safety codes.
So the vetting of the CPC also involves an inspection of the property.
Not necessarily, but in this particular case, inspectors from the Department of Inspection and Standards had visited the house. And so we made it clear to the petitioner that the rezoning was predicated on bringing this in.
And oh, I'm so sorry, but you did not get an opportunity to sign out. Well, coming up. Mr. Duguerre, I'll be calling you, I'll be calling back on you, okay? So. Madam Clerk, can you give this to her, please?
Good evening. Gabriela Mendez. I am the owner of the property on 4 Avon Street in Providence. And the property right now is a 5-unit. It was a 6-unit. It had an illegal unit, which has already been converted into a townhouse. It is sitting on a 16,000 square feet lot. So the R3 would not allow me to subdivide and create more housing in the future. Because it was non-conforming. So the R4 will allow the property to be conforming, therefore allowing for a subdivision in the future. The house has already all the alarm system because that was the condition prior to selling in 2020. The only one thing that was illegal was the 6-unit, which has already been converted. And I already have the certificate of completion.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a quick question.
Councilor Peterson?
Just a quick question, because you talked about subdivision. Do you plan on subdividing at some point after?
Lord willing in the future, not near future, but yeah.
Okay.
So it's a 17,000 square feet lot. It's a beautiful lot.
So it's a big lot.
Yes, which right now cannot be subdivided because it's R3, non-conforming.
Councilor Vargas?
Thank you, Marcia. So you plan to subdivide, you plan to go up, put another floor on the top?
No, subdivide the lot. So the house is sitting on about 9,000 square feet. So it still has 8,000 square feet of
Land.
vacant land. But that's in the future. But right now, I cannot do anything with the land because it's R3. So it's not conforming.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Duguerre, you may come up.
My leg gets stiff very easily sitting down. That's why I'm better standing up.
You made it. You're all the way up here.
Thank you. If the problem is that she can't develop her oversized lot and put another house or two on the extra space, then that suggests that we need to look at that as a remedy, not to change it to R4. That is not what we need to do. That's not what we want to do. That's not what we should do. I reiterate what I said before. We need to look at the map of the city of Providence and see if there are any zones that we feel R4 is not crowded enough, and that we essentially need to make a new zone called R5. Fine, let's make that informed decision. The houses right across the street from this property, there's a single family and there's a two family. So there's no justification for making this R4, especially after the quote unquote technical amendment that was inserted in the list last fall that deleted square foot per dwelling unit requirements entirely whatsoever. That needs to be rectified. So I would encourage the committee to, if not vote against this, then just merely table it until the comprehensive plan process goes through this current year, this summer actually, and we look to see what zoning modifications that we need to make so that she can subdivide her oversized lot, but maintain the reasonable density level, which is what we all want in the city of Providence. We all seem to forget that the reason that Providence used to be a city of 250,000 back during World War II. And the reason Providence's population plummeted was because after the war, people started getting married, wanting to raise families and wanting to have a little more elbow room. And so they moved out of the cities into the suburbs. So let's respect that recognition that we don't want to, someone coined the phrase, if we don't pay attention to history, it repeats itself. I don't know who said that, but it's very true. And so let me just encourage you to set this aside until we review the city map and make an informed decision as to what makes sense density wise. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Madam Clerk. And now this concludes the public hearing. The public hearing is now closed for item number 4. And taking the recommendation from CPC, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion is made.
Second.
And second, all in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Madam Clerk, item number 5, please.
Item number 5 is a petition from Nicholas J. Heemand Esquire and Dane E. Ardenti Esquire, Darrow Everett LLP, 1 Turk's Head Place, Suite 1200, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903, on behalf of City Lofts LLC, requesting a text amendment to section 1203C, temporary use standards for temporary mobile food sales for the property located on Assessor's Plat 20, Lot 164, 260 Westminster Street.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll entertain a motion to enter into exhibit 5A into the records.
So moved.
Motion is made, and do I have a second on this motion? It's motion a second by Councilor Vargas. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Exhibit 8 is entered into the records. Mr. Azar, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask that you make an amendment to this. I've spoken with the attorney for the applicant, and he agrees. I don't know if he wants to indicate as such, but the way this petition is written is that it applies to a specific piece of property. That's not the intention of the ordinance. It's that it would apply to what's known as the Down City Overlay District. And I can explain that the idea behind this is that right now we have a code that's called temporary mobile food sales. And this is this allows for things like food trucks to be located on vacant lots to operate a commercial operation, but not in a brick and mortar establishment. And we think that's a good thing because sometimes people want to sort of experiment with different uses before investing in a building, or they just don't have the money yet to do so. So we think these temporary uses can be good in the neighborhoods, and they can add some vibrancy and some flexibility. Specifically today, sales of alcohol is not allowed in these temporary mobile food sales. The petitioner wishes to operate a beer garden on a piece of property in downtown. And they also want to use a modified shipping container to set up as their facility to serve the alcohol. And so we analyze this, and we are trying to figure out a way that this can work without being too permissive, but to allow for this sort of thing to happen. And we think downtown is the appropriate place for this to happen. So I just want to make it clear that this ordinance is not just going to apply to 206 Westminster Street. So I would like to propose an amendment to the way ultimately the ordinance will be written. And I'll just read it into the record, and if it's okay with you, then I would ask for you to take a vote to make that amendment. So first of all, the header would be entitled "An Ordinance and Amendment of Chapter 27 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence, entitled the City of Providence Zoning Ordinance, approved November 24, 2014, as amended, to change the text in section 1203 and 1204 regarding temporary mobile food sales." And then in section 1 of the ordinance, it would state chapter 27 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence, entitled the City of Providence Zoning Ordinance, approved November 24, 2014, as amended, is hereby further amended by changing the text in section 1203C and 1204 as follows. And then the body of it would be exactly what you see in your petition. The only thing that I'm changing here is I'm removing any reference to a specific address. And again, Attorney Heeman, I believe, is nodding that he concurs with that.
Right.
So I think it would be appropriate at this moment if you wanted to make that amendment. So that's what's
Right.
in front of you.
So I'll ask for the motion and then you will.
And then I'll
Clarifies that.
present the City Plan Commission's recommendation after that.
Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to amend.
So moved.
Motion is made
Second.
and a second. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
Mr. Hayes.
Thank you. So the City Plan Commission took this up at its meeting in May. And they had a lively discussion about this. And some of the debate centered on the fact that there would be these temporary containers on the site. And there were some members who felt that they weren't perfectly comfortable with the containers being there sort of on a permanent basis. So they were in favor of the amendment, but they asked that there be a condition that says that uses in containers shall only operate between April 1st and October 31st. Containers shall be removed from the site in the interim. I think you may hear from the petitioner that the removal of these containers may not be practical. I would sort of leave it up to Attorney Heeman to make that argument. But beyond that, the City Plan Commission found that this amendment would be consistent with the comprehensive plan and with the purposes of zoning to protect the public safety, health, and welfare. And so they recommended in favor of it.
Thank you. Attorney Nicholas Heyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an exciting proposal, not just because it's on the world's largest poster board that I've ever worked with in a hearing before, but this is something fun. It's something that engages downtown in a different way. And it's something that brings Providence up to speed with what other cities around the country are doing. These are things that other cities are celebrating that we're doing. And it's actually something that make it more practical for something that we have been doing on this particular site, which is Grants Block, which if you walk down Union, it's that crushed stone area there, right? They used to do movies on Grants Block before they built out the restaurant components. So that movie screen, that became a use that we really couldn't do anymore. So that coupled with the COVID crisis, we said, well, what can we do with this space? And so we applied for one of the grants to encourage outdoor entertainment and outdoor seating back in 2020. And since then, we've been operating a beer garden and pop-up retail space there sporadically since 2020, primarily on the weekends. We've been doing it by bringing all the tables, bringing all the chairs, setting up the tents, breaking it all down, coming back the next day and doing it all over again. So in talking with the city, particularly the planning department and Chris Issei, we said, well, we'd like to make this more stable because we could make further improvements such as lighting and landscaping if we know that we can do it the right way. So this is designed, as Bob said, not just for this site, but for the sites in the downtown area that you could do something like this to be able to use a shipping container. The zoning ordinance today would allow you to use a trailer, right? So if we just stuck this on some sort of trailer type hitch, you could use it, but to place it there, it doesn't make any sense. It's a distinction without a difference, basically. So the zoning amendment adds in that you can use a container, maintains it as a temporary use, and then would also allow us to serve alcohol in addition to beer, in addition to food. So we've been partnering with different breweries to bring them into the downtown and for people to be able to purchase them in a beer garden type atmosphere. Very similar to what's right outside this window here with Trinity. The difference being they have a permanent structure so they can license it directly. So all of this would be required to either be approved by the Department of Business Regulation. So for instance, if there's a brewery that we're working with, they would have to have a Class P license to be able to do it. Or we would license it directly through the Board of Licenses. Right now, we have to come in every time we do it and get a special event permit. This is designed to make a use in the zoning code so that you come in, you get one approval and you're good to go. It's a waive. It's going to be Thursdays through Sundays. It'll end about 10 p.m. It'll start Thursdays and Fridays sort of after work. Weekends, it'll start around noon. You may have seen this at different times without really realizing what was going on. It's been out there during PVD Fest. It's been out there, on Saturdays, different types of events. This would be a more permanent outdoor space for people to be able to enjoy. Bob referenced the Planning Commission's concern about the temporary nature of the structure. So this is a temporary structure. You can pick it up, you can move it. If you've been to De Pasquale Plaza, there's a bar in the plaza. It's there. It's been used every year since it's there, but it's on wheels. You pick it up, you move it, you break it down, you take it away. Nothing about this is permanent in nature. So what we don't want to have happen is this arbitrary timeline of by this particular day, you'd have to remove it, because we'd like to use this in the winter as well, to have holiday festivals, to bring people back into the down city area when it gets quiet in the winter. Not just have it be purely seasonal in nature, like an expansion of premises. So we have no issue with it saying if we stop doing it, if we stop using it, that we would take the container away so that it doesn't just become some bladed structure. But we would encourage you not to put those arbitrary confines of on October 31st, you got to take it away, because we'd like to use it in November, December, January, February. And be able to keep bringing people into that outdoor space. Obviously, we would heat it and such. But without the reliability of knowing that it's in the code, we can't make the investments to improve that area and make it more attractive, make it an area to celebrate in downtown Providence, similar to what they've done with Trinity and Burnside Park. So we've been doing this. If you don't know we've been doing it, that means we've been doing it in a way that's respectful of the people who live in that area. I have, for the record, Madam Clerk, just sort of a synopsis of what we've been doing, together with a letter from the Providence Foundation in support and another letter from surrounding businesses in the Westminster area. I think there's 16 on there, all who support what we're doing, including the restaurants that you might think might not like it because they might view it as competition. But when you bring more people in, that's more customers for those restaurants as well. So it's building on our culinary reputation as a leader in this country for what we're doing, but bringing us up to speed so that we're doing what other cities are doing, and keeping this outdoor movement going in a way that I think adds a lot of character to what otherwise is a vacant space in the down city area that we can't really do too much with because it's too close to everything else around us. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll give this to the clerk with your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, I'll get him back. Mr. Heman, can you come back? I
Nick, I'm sorry, I have a question.
have a couple of questions.
First of all, thank you. I actually do like the big pegboard setup. It's very clear.
I think the guy just got the cutter. Should have been two, but.
Do you want to do the amendment?
Can I-
before we do
yeah.
that? Yeah, we're just gonna do an amendment really quick.
I'll entertain a motion to enter into exhibit 5B into this record.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Swaim, and second, all in favor, aye.
Aye,
Opposed, the ayes have it. Exhibit 5B is now part of the records.
thank you.
Go
Um,
ahead.
So my question isn't regarding the retail concession. I like the idea. I think that making use of our spaces in Down City is a great opportunity for everybody. My question is around the shipping container. Are they not illegal in the city? Are they not being able to be used for any? I'm just trying to clarify.
So I think you and I might be familiar with a similar circumstance.
That's why I'm asking.
And that was with regard to the use of a shipping container as a shed in a residential area. I got involved with that situation after it was well down the tracks. I think that situation didn't come out the way it should.
Right.
To avoid this resulting in something like that, because you could say, well, it's a trailer. Just put it on something that made it a trailer. You're specifically adding in the word container. That's what the amendment does. Not in every zone in the city, not for every purpose in the city. You're adding the word container into the part of the city zoning ordinance related to temporary retail uses for purposes of doing this. And you're also adding in alcohol in addition to food as a permitted temporary use. So it won't take care of that situation that we're talking about, that no one else knows what the hell we're talking about. It won't
no idea.
proliferate that throughout the city. Only in the D1 zone and only for this purpose could you use a shipping container.
Thank you. I think, but just for clarification, I would just want to know that there isn't an ordinance that specifies the use of shipping container, trailer, whatever it is. Just to make sure that we're not doing something that is in direct inhibiting a different ordinance. I just want to double check and make sure. So I just would like to see if I can do that for a couple of minutes and look at the ordinances and see.
Sure.
I think Mr. Azar could probably give you.
Please.
Bob, can you come on, please? Thank you.
I just want to be very thorough.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so in response to the situation with the shipping container in someone's yard in a residential zone, we proposed and the council adopted an amendment to the general regulations for accessory structures. And that regulation says in all residential zones, a mobile home, manufactured home, recreational vehicle, semi-tractor trailer, shipping container, boat or motor vehicle shall not be used as an accessory structure.
So, okay, so it's residential specific. Got it.
Residential
Okay,
zones.
I just wanted to make sure that we're being very thorough. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick and Mr. Azar. Okay, so that concludes, being that there is no other anybody else testifying on this, that concludes this part of the public hearing on this item. So the public hearing for item number 5 is now closed. And I'll following direction of the CPC, well, I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Motion is made
Second.
and it's second. All in favor, aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. So number 5 is approved. Madam Clerk, item number 6, please.
Item number 6 is a petition from John J. Garrahy Esquire, John J. Garrahy Law LLC, 2088 Broad Street, Cranston, Rhode Island, 02905, on behalf of Francisco R. Cruz, requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessor's Plat 42, Lot 11, 12 Buffalo Court, from R3 to R4.
I'll entertain a motion to enter into the record Exhibit 6A.
So moved.
Motion is made and second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Exhibit 6A is now part of the records. And we have Mr. John Garrahy, please. I'm sorry, Mr. Azar, please, from CPC.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank
Second to
you.
last item here, almost there. Okay,
getting there.
so 12 Buffalo Court is actually a parcel of land that's just around the corner from 4 Avon Street, one of the earlier petitions. In this case, it's a very long and shallow piece of property. It's got some development issues because of its shape and size. In this case, the petitioner intends to build 2 two-family houses on this property, which in the planning department and the city plan commission's opinion is a perfectly appropriate use. It's a rather small piece of property, and if subdivided, it will be 2 lots of under 3,500 square feet. But given its location and given the land use designation of the comprehensive plan, the R4 zoning district would be appropriate, and it would be the only way for the developer to build 2 two-families. As it's zoned today, the 3-family, it could support either 1 3-family house or 4 row houses. So in other words, if there were 4 units sort of stacked side by side, that's one way of getting 4 units on the property. But the petitioner feels that it's more appropriate given the configuration of this and the way he's trying to build 2-family houses, I believe, to sell to an owner occupant, but I'll defer to the applicant on that. R4 would enable that to happen. So given that, and given its location and the comprehensive plan's land use designation, the City Plan Commission felt that this was an appropriate zoning change, and they voted to recommend that you approve the change.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Azar. Mr. Garahy?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, John Garrahy, on behalf of the petitioner with respect to this matter, has been said before, Bob Azar does a terrific job of explaining, and it's exactly right. So this property abuts the 4 Avon property that you just had. It's always interesting whenever I view these properties to see these neighborhoods and how they're composed. This is vacant land, underutilized property, kind of around in the dead end, adjacent to the C zone, which is the commercial zone, and adjacent to a large apartment structure not too far away. As Bob indicated, a row house of 4 units would be permitted in the R3 zone. We don't think that's entirely appropriate for this area. We believe that two-family homes would be more appropriate, would enliven the neighborhood, and is entirely appropriate. It is a strip of property that has some constraints with respect to development in the R4, and the allowance for 3,500 square foot lots allows for that and is consistent with other lots of that size in the neighborhood. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Garahy. Any questions? Councilor Harris?
Thank you so much. Parking, can you talk a little about that? Parking.
Yeah, 4 parking spaces are required and 4 parking spaces will be provided.
Awesome. Thank you.
And
Any-
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
absolutely, you reduce congestion on the street. It's a very narrow street there. Mr. Chairman, the owner of 4 Avon, who was here earlier and I think had signed up, has indicated that she was going to be leaving the property, but she was in favor of the proposal.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have any questions? All right, that starts with an S and an A. The next name. Come on over, please. Is Seiko. Seiki. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman and Council. My name is Seiko, who lives on across the street from the lot that they're talking about. I would like to address something, which is right now, the road is pretty narrow to go by that Buffalo Ford. If one car goes this way, the other car cannot come this way. It's very narrow. It's impossible to have it, a building over there, and then people go back and forth with the car. But my concern is, if they build a building over there, there's no parking, what will we do? Right now, the road is small. If any car park on Avon Street, the trash dumpster will not be able to go around and pick up the trash on that road alone, as it is now. And as far as the safety go, the fire truck almost can't even go by that road as it is now. And for safety, if it's gonna build more house right there, my concern is it's gonna be difficult for people who lives on that road. So if I do have my one, I would say stop not to build it, but that's not up to me. It's up to you guys, but I would urge you consider minimize as much as you could on that road to build any house on that road. So thank you.
Thank you. Gabriela Mendez. She left. I think do you know if anybody has tried to make this a one-way?
It's two-way.
It is two-way, but
One car go, the other car.
but could this pass?
Somebody park right beside it, then it just stop, the road.
Right.
Stop, but not do that.
Right, but do you know if anybody has tried to make this
There's
a
no straight
one-way? Because that could
There's
be
no
a
straight
solution.
middle.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this? Hearing none, so that concludes this part of number 6, public hearing. So the public hearing on number 6 is now closed.
Chair, could I ask a question? To I think, Mr. Azar on this?
Well, we,
Hey.
Bob, can you come up? I mean, we closed the public hearing already.
Oh. Oh, gotcha.
So under consultation, maybe? 1 second, let me check with the city solicitor. Thank you, Mr. Azar. Okay, so following the instructions of the CPC, I'll entertain a motion to approve number 6.
So moved.
Motion is made
Second.
and a second. All in favor, aye. The opposed? The ayes have it, and motion, item number 6 is approved. Madam Clerk, item number 7.
Item number 7 is a petition from John J. Garrahy Esquire, John J. Garrahy Law LLC, 2088 Broad Street, Cranston, Rhode Island, 02905, on behalf of Richard R. Grasso and RDR Realty Associates, Inc., requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessor's Plat 84, lots 164, 165, 166, 436, 447, and 477 Chalkstone Avenue from C1 to C2.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to enter Exhibit 7A into the records.
So moved.
Motion is made
Second.
and second. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Exhibit 7A is now part of the records. Mr. Azar, number 7, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I told my wife that my estimate was I'd be out of here by 7:30, so I appreciate that you guys are kind of keeping it on schedule for me. We're almost there. I think we're almost there. So this is a petition by a well-established business along Chalkstone Avenue. It's an auto dealership and repair facility. It's located in the C1 zone, which does not allow for this type of facility. We figure that they probably have been the recipients of variances over the years to operate and gradually expand. These days, this kind of variance is not supportable. If they were to go to the zoning board today, they would not be able to get a variance to expand. So we explained to them that the best case scenario here would be to petition the city council for a zoning change to C2. In the C2 zone, auto repair and service and sales is allowed. It's still going to be subject to a special use permit from the zoning board. But doing this zoning change would give a lot more clarity and a lot more predictability to the owner, and it would allow them to expand their business, which my understanding is their intent. This piece of property is located in an area that the comprehensive plan designates for neighborhood commercial, and that would support zoning of either C1 or C2. So in this case, the City Plan Commission reviewed this and found that this zoning change would be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and made a positive recommendation to change the zoning district to C2.
Any question for Mr. Azar from my fellow colleagues? Councilor Peterson?
I just have one quick question. The lots that we're talking about altering are all commercial use only, right?
So the C2, are you saying?
The one, so this 164, 165, 166, 436.
Yes.
Those are all already C1s.
They're already
commercial
C1.
space. Okay.
That's correct.
That's
Yep.
what I just was trying to double check.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Azar. Mr. Garrahy, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, John Garrahy on behalf of the petitioner. As Bob indicated, this is an attempt, Mr. Grasso, who has owned this facility for 30 years, that would like to be able to expand his operation a little bit, would not be able to do that under a C1 zoning designation, would be able to do that if he goes to the zoning board for a special use permit. The difference is that if you go to the zoning board under the C1 designation, you have to prove that you can't do anything else with the property. It's a use
Right.
variance. It's a very high standard to meet, which he would not be able to meet. Likelihood would not be. So this goes before the zoning board for the expansion of the use, even though this change of zone to C2. So he's been a terrific business person in the area. As a matter of fact, I remember this as an automobile service station back when I walked by this to go to Blessed Sacrament School when I was 10 or younger. So the same business has been there. Mr. Grasso now owns it, wants to expand the business a little bit. The C2, as I indicated, with a special use permit from the zoning board would allow him to do that. Thank you very much.
Any question for Mr. Gary?
I have a quick question.
Sure, Councilor Peterson.
Not necessarily a question, but more like a comment slash question. So this particular area, I'm very, very familiar with, and the commercial makeup of that particular area has really changed over the years. It is much more restaurants, stores, local family stores, many things, local Family Dollar, laundromats, things of that nature.
Walgreens right there.
Right, there's quite a lot of neighborhood small business, really great thriving small businesses. And I think that these main commercial corridors should bring more of that, breed more of that in these specific spaces. You know, they become local places of shop. We have the Chalkstone Supermarket right across the street. You have a Guatemalan bakery and a Salvadorian bakery right across the street from each other. They're really main staples of community in those areas. And they've become these like extended homes for many people that have that live in that neighborhood and that come and travel there just to do their purchases. My only concern with the expansion of this is that we take away the opportunity for more of that. And I do appreciate how successful Mr. Grasso's business has been, but what a larger used vehicle or purchase of vehicles, a business where you can purchase vehicles is not necessarily, I think, the vision that we should continue having for that street. I do very much believe that the street should bring more of an opportunity for smaller businesses to come, you know, neighborhood businesses to continue doing a little bit more in terms of bringing the vitality and the essence back to Chalkstone Ave. And I just believe personally that a used car facility doesn't do that any longer. So that's my only comment slash, it's more of a comment. That's it.
Can I just comment on that? I appreciate your concern, but the C2 use of these neighborhoods would not prohibit those. I mean, granted, his intention is to expand his business, but when he's not there, it would allow for those other types of uses that you're talking about to go there. They'd have to be modified for the facility, certainly, but wouldn't prohibit them from going. It would encourage them from going. I get your point, but he's been there for 30 years and wants to continue his business at that location. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so hearing none, thank you so much, Mr. Gary. This concludes the public hearing on item number 7. So the public hearing on item number 7 is now closed. Okay, so following the instructions of CPC, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion to approve is made.
Second.
And it's also second. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
I'm sorry, Chair, can I be in the record abstaining on this or?
You can.
Thank you.
All right, so motion passes. Item number 7 is approved. Thank you. Madam Clerk, being that there is no further business on record here on the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn is made by Councilor Peterson and a second
Second.
by Councilor Roy and Councilor Harris. All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have him. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Diablo, me mataron.